knowing that about myself helped to access other things such as self-compassion towards myself, and also the knowledge of it and sort of the work through understanding more of what highly sensitive people really benefit from.
I'm Mira Kaddoura, and this is Into Healing, Austin Edition.
On this episode of Into Healing, therapist Sidu Arroyo opens up about what it means to feel everything deeply. She helps us understand highly sensitive souls, those who process life so intensely that the world can feel too much and not enough all at once. Together, we discover how sensitivity isn't something to fix, but a gift to nurture. If you support our mission of giving everyone a way into healing, please consider becoming a paying member through our Patreon. Your generosity will help bring more meaningful conversations to the world.
Sidu, I'm just so grateful to be here with you today and really diving into this topic that I'm sure a lot of people are going to love learning about. Your work works a lot with highly sensitive people and highly sensitive kids in particular. And I'd love to know how you started on this journey.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Yes, it's a pleasure to be here. My journey into working with highly sensitive people and children actually began with my own journey. As probably in my 20s or whatnot, I started to really try to figure out this question of what's going on with me? Why do I seem to be so different from other people and certain things that just felt, if you will, that were wrong with me. And at the time I was not a therapist. And it sort of led me in a path to try to find out my own answers. And I stumbled upon the work of Elaine Aron, who's the researcher who coined the term highly sensitive person. And it began to open up just a whole different world for me of, this makes sense. This makes sense as to why I am, if you will, the way that I am, why I'm particularly sensitive to certain things that most people aren't.
So tell us, what makes a highly sensitive person or child? What are the traits? What makes somebody highly sensitive?
Yeah, so a highly sensitive person, as I mentioned, that phrase was coined by Elaine Aron, and she has sort of identified as there being 4 characteristics for individuals. I like to sort of also state that this isn't a diagnosis, so people cannot be diagnosed. It's sort of viewed as more of a trait, something that, a trait that you're sort of born with.
Yeah, I have red hair. Somebody's highly sensitive.
Yeah. And some of the research can identify some biological components. So if one of your parents was highly sensitive, genetically you may be more. Some of the offsprings may be highly sensitive. And so highly sensitive people often have these four characteristics. Yeah. They have depth processing. So they're processing things quite deeply. And this can be oftentimes with children, they're asking these very big life questions at a very young age. Then in adulthood, you're sort of processing. You're really interested in, trying to explore depth and whatever it is that your interests are. You're trying to go as deep as you possibly can. Then there's overstimulation. So depth processing, overstimulation.
That they get overstimulated.
They get overstimulated quite quickly. Yeah. And so their sensory, their nervous system is more sensitive than other individuals. And so they're going to be overstimulated pretty quickly. In adulthood, more or less, maybe we've adapted. You can often see it with children. So a child's going to be very overstimulated by loud noises, lights, bright lights, or just lights in general, and other things. The tags, the the sensory aspect of clothes or what they're wearing, and other aspects. Taste can be very sensitive to certain, just to smells, taste, textures, a lot of different things like that, and can be kind of viewed as, whether like a picky child, let's say with food. Oh, why is my child so picky or whatnot? Or, oh, they're just being difficult. Can often be something that might be used as a label to describe such children. And of course, if that's the environment, then as adults we sort of
think we're difficult.
Think that we're difficult. Oh, why am I like this? Like all my friends can tolerate this noise or this type of input. Movies, things that they watch, their bodies, their nervous systems can be highly affected by a movie that one child could watch, and they can make it out of this, let's say, PG-13 movie or something that doesn't really seem scary, but there's a scary scene, and that highly sensitive person can walk out and be dysregulated, very dysregulated. And will often carry that kind of dysregulation and that image, which kind of gets stuck in their brain long after somebody else. So there's the overstimulation, there's the depth processing, there's a high capacity for empathy that highly sensitive people can often display. Oftentimes for highly sensitive people or children, it's going to be that they may not know where to sort of stop this empathy, and so
taking
if you're
on other people's,
taking on the other person's, and that can oftentimes then sort of add even to the overstimulation, or to the sort of to the all of it, to where a highly sensitive person can be very easily overwhelmed and sort of exhausted. And then there's a sensitivity to like the subtleties. And so let's take the space that we're in right now. A highly sensitive person and in sort of this space, if things were set up like this today, and then tomorrow we meet, and then the next day we meet, and let's say the picture's tilted a certain way, they're noticing that. They're noticing sort of like, this is different, or this is different. Like just things in their environment. They're very prone to be aware of that. As well as things that, let's say, the subtleties in ourselves, facial expressions. And so
like noticing any, like if you're sad or if you're whatever.
Noticing even if let's say we are doing our very best to sort of display, to not show feeling, but a highly sensitive person will probably notice. Oftentimes, like with children, they might notice like a slight scrunch in your nose or something very different that's happening in your face, and they pick up on it. So these sort of four characteristics, all within a spectrum, and all sort of show individually. Some highly sensitive people may be more overstimulated in certain environments than others, but oftentimes highly sensitive people will have these four characteristics.
Fascinating. I definitely have at least one highly sensitive child for sure.
Yeah, and that's always,
sure.
in the conversations around this, oftentimes, they're like, oh, wait a second, I know somebody.
This makes total sense.
Yeah, and so the research is somewhat shifting a little bit, but it said that about 20% of the population, a little bit higher now, maybe 25%, are highly sensitive.
Well, I mean, that's a considerable number.
That's a considerable number, yeah. And considerable, and also, if you will, with that number compared to the 80% that more or less move
can
through
go
life
by,
kind of like, this
Aren't as affected
happened,
by it.
and they're not as affected.
Yeah. It's almost like they can process things, move through things much quicker, maybe, even.
Oftentimes, because the highly sensitive person is processing the subtleties in the environment, what the other person may be experiencing if they're with somebody else. They're processing their own sort of thoughts and running through all of these different scenarios. The 80% of the population can have this experience and sort of, if you will, move on. The highly sensitive person is still sort of trying to work through, right, and categorize, navigate and sort through everything. Yeah.
Huh. You mentioned that you started this whole journey with kind of identifying that you were quite different. Do you now identify with that trait of being a highly sensitive person? Like, has it kind of crystallized maybe these things that maybe in your 20s you were trying to make sense of?
It's part of my identity, and now I think I can hold it in the sense of like, this isn't all of who I am. But knowing that about myself helped to access other things such as self-compassion towards myself, and also trying the knowledge of it and sort of the work through understanding more of what highly sensitive people really benefit from. Like, how do you, I don't want to say heal, because highly sensitive, like this trait isn't something that
it's
you
like
heal
red hair.
from.
You don't heal
right,
from red hair.
You don't heal from it, but in my context, and sometimes in for a lot of the individuals that I work with, because 80% of the population is not highly sensitive, and we hear things like children are resilient and all of these good things, and that's true, but resilience also needs to be balanced with nurture and care, and what the specific individual needs. So while child A, who is not highly sensitive, can thrive and benefit from a certain style, a highly sensitive person is going to need a whole different style of approach and care and nurture.
Yeah.
And so in my context, coming from a immigrant family who had certain ways of rearing children and expectations and things of that sort, that part wasn't nurtured or cared for. And so it sort of, at that, in my younger years, sort of crystallized this thought of like, there must be something wrong with me then. Why can't I, a very simple point that I can look back and laugh at now, but my parents would have parties and things, family members over, and there would often be very loud music. Great things. I love music. But in my younger years, it would dysregulate me so much. And I would often be the one who would go there while all my cousins and everybody's running around, and they're just, noise. It's noise fine in the background. Yeah. They were fine. I would go over there every so often, and it's almost as if I would time it in my head, like you can't do it too much. So, but I would time it like to go over there and be like, "Can you guys turn this down?" I would go to the grown-ups and ask them to turn it down, because it would just dysregulate me so much, and they would turn it down for a little bit,
and then it could go back up.
And then it would go back, and so I'd have to leave, try to go to my room or something, and even in the evenings when it was bedtime, my sisters could fall asleep. Other people could fall asleep. I could not, because the music just felt so loud. It felt like my ears were just pounding and pounding.
How is being sensitive a superpower?
Yeah. I'm going to go a little bit bigger here, as I'm just thinking, with our current world, there's so much
the process.
Just to process, but also just tragedies like in the world. And I often think of like this population can help us sort of connect to the human nature of having, let's say, accessing empathy for other people who are suffering, for just for being sensitive to the earth, for protecting the earth, for protecting others, for caring for those who can't. And I think when highly sensitive people are nurtured and cared for and sort of view the sensitivity as a superpower, if you will, I think they're often pioneers. They can help us move into these ways of caring and protecting, others and our world and everything that we inhabit.
Awesome. I love that. What are some misunderstandings people have around highly sensitive people or children?
I've often heard like they're being so dramatic. It's sort of things that we just kind of like, we got to get over this. We got to move through this. This isn't something that, if you will,
they can get over.
They can get over.
It's like going back to the trait, like having red hair is not something I get over. It's like, it's just part of their identity and who they are.
Yeah. So then perhaps a better way to work with that sort of misconception is, how can I support, right? How do I support the highly sensitive person in my life if they are overstimulated by this?
So maybe let's start with, what does the inner world of a highly sensitive person look like for anybody listening to have more empathy for highly sensitive people or children? What does that inner landscape feel like to them?
The first thing sort of that comes to mind is something that we kind of touched on, is sort of this overstimulation. Like everything actually can feel like too much. But that's not to say that the highly sensitive person is too much, but things often feel like too much. And that could go from feelings. I have a highly sensitive child myself, and when she experiences a certain feeling, it dictates everything. And that's true for all kids. But it often can be, like, she could spend a whole day in sadness. She could spend a whole day in joy. And oftentimes even when it's joy, it's like this overwhelming, like I could see it almost coming out of her body. It's so big. And that can create also loops in certain thoughts and certain feelings. Highly sensitive people are also kind of prone to anxiety.
Oh, interesting. Because they're processing things so deeply, because they're like internalizing things, feeling things so deeply.
Yeah, what I feel is quite necessary and evident through both my work with highly sensitive people, sort of, if you will, my lived experience and what I've learned, is they thrive in relationships, in stable relationships, secure, sort
nurturing,
of where they feel safe.
And maybe even seen too. Like
And
somebody
seen.
gets
Yes.
that they are overstimulated by blank or whatever.
Yes. Yes. That seeing component almost seems to help settle what I described, if you will, the leaning towards the anxiety. When they sort of feel seen and understood and, yes, this makes sense about me, then it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, I make sense. I make sense. Which I think is also,
and maybe I belong too.
And I belong, yeah. Which again, but that we could go across the board. I think that's, that would be a very human thing.
For sure. But I feel like with people who are overstimulated or feel things deeply, and that isn't the way most people process, or 80% of the people process the world, it could sometimes feel isolating to be that way, right? So finding somebody that makes them feel like they belong, that they're not an outsider, is probably huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
know?
Yeah. If you will, the key for your child, your highly sensitive child, or just children, but your highly sensitive child, to move towards independence, sort of this thing that we want for our kids, right? I want them to grow up and
Be able to stand on their own 2 feet.
stand on their own 2 feet, connect to their inner resources, has to come through that relationship first. It has to be emotional dependency, right? So for there to be independence, we need dependency. Yeah. And
it's that co-regulation piece, right? Of having some other, when you're young, you can't co-regulate you can't regulate your own body. So you need that other person, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And for that highly sensitive child, oftentimes it may seem like this is a lot of co-regulating that I'm doing. It has been so consistent through my work, like interviewing, let's say, parents or when I'm meeting with adults and we kind of go back through, like, what have you heard about who you were? Often, if you will, very fussy as children, very clingy as children, and sometimes for parents this can be so alarming. It's like imagining you're at a party with a friend that the kid knows, right, a cousin or something, and they could be excited about going to the party, but you get to the party and your child doesn't want to leave your side. Your other children go, or everybody's, and your child's just like by your side. Right? And sometimes we can view that as like, oh no, like what's going on here? What's going on with you? Like go, have fun. Or I need space. This is my time.
I need some adult time.
I need some adult time. Yeah. But I think that's like one. Why is this behavior happening right now? Right? And how can I support them? Right? Maybe they need some of that connection before they can kind of venture off.
Totally.
Maybe they need to stay with you the whole time.
Or I've one of my daughters, I call her the kitty cat, because she'll just come and put her little head in my lap, and I just know she needs some rubs, some playing with her hair, back scratches, and then she'll get her rubs, and then she'll take off again.
Yeah.
But it's like that moment. And sometimes it's literally just a few minutes, but it I guess makes them feel calm and regulated before they could go off and do other stuff,
Yeah.
And it's like, how do we allow for that time where we slow down too? We're not like, no, go, do whatever you need to do, or go do your homework, or whatever, right? Like we allow for those pauses almost to kind of get them to, you're almost like fueling their battery, or nurturing them to be able to give them whatever they need to go off and do whatever comes next,
Yeah.
But sometimes we're just like not allowing for those pauses, right? With the kids that need it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the pauses can be hard for us as well.
Totally.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we're like, we just need to be around adults for a minute.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or like, I'm having a conversation with you, and, you're being asked 100 times for whatever it is. Right? And you just need a minute.
Yeah. And so with that, it's, how do we as parents then also not deny what we need at that time? Maybe we do need adult interaction at that time, and try to connect in some way.
Yep.
With that highly sensitive person.
Yeah. Like
or
even
child.
just like holding them or touching them or rubbing their back or whatever, knowing that you're there, even if you're just, you're finishing this adult conversation. You see them.
Yes.
But give me a minute, Yeah. What kind of environments or things are like challenging or nourishing, just for us to be aware of, like, what are things, obviously you've talked about like loud sounds, from your personal experience, but are there other things that are challenging for highly sensitive people? and then or children, and then are there things that are nurturing, things that we could be aware of on both sides?
What could be challenging is certain environments that, again, because things can be on a spectrum, one child may be more affected
By light.
by lights.
Yeah.
Sometimes in my work, in my work with teens, some of my more highly sensitive teens will often talk about feeling just very drained by the lights in their schools and things of that sort, by certain sounds. I know, I'll use this example as, it's a more personal example, but with my highly sensitive child, I would give her headphones to use, like noise canceling sort of, or noise, more or less, in the car when we had to go out places that were oftentimes a little bit longer, and her baby sibling is in the car. Chances are baby sibling's going to start crying, and so it was a way of supporting. Okay, when brother starts crying, you have this, so
that's your tool.
You can. Here's your tool. Yeah. So environments, just noticing the environments, both externally, but also just, let's say, within the home. What are things that we are maybe avoiding, not addressing within ourselves? That's going to be, how are we, if you will, working to heal ourselves, to address our own anxieties, our own fears that may relate to our highly sensitive child, and who they're going to become in 20 years down the road or something, or how they're going to make it through life or whatnot. Has that the relational, right, the family dynamic can affect them. It doesn't have to be perfect. Good enough. Good enough is really good enough. And but things that also then would feel supportive for them. Rest. I think rest
feels like it's foundational.
Yeah, and not sleep, but just like, do they have time throughout their days
to pause, to play,
and this is true for adults as well.
Not be overscheduled.
Nature is often something that seems to be echoed across for highly sensitive people. Like, get them out in nature. I personally feel like nature provides so many healing components.
Right?
Yes. And so nature tends to help them and connect them to
almost help regulate
them regulate.
Like it kind of provides that support. The same kind of, just the earth holds the anxiety, holds all that.
Yeah.
Huh. How can, like, obviously parents, but also teachers or other caregivers or even siblings, right? Like having, say you're a family of 3 kids and one is highly sensitive and the other 2 are not. Like, how can the, like, ecosystem around the highly sensitive person support them? Like, for example, with siblings, like, should the siblings be aware of, like, their sibling having that trait, and being aware of it might help them know?
It could, yeah. I wouldn't say that it has to be something, and I'm also very mindful that, in the sibling dynamic, the sibling doesn't often, it's my personal belief that the sibling doesn't have to hold really much of anything. They don't have to hold themselves back for their sibling, right? If you're a highly sensitive person and I'm not, and I know, like, you might feel a lot of different feelings, I can still share my anger with you. I can still share whatever it is that I do in healthy manners. Granted, if we're talking about kids, it's not going to be in the healthiest way, perhaps. But then that's where the adults come in, right? It's the adults holding it for the kids. And really, if anything, just helping to establish boundaries, offering both kids time away from each other, providing, space for the non-highly sensitive child to also, if you will, take up space, because oftentimes the highly sensitive child can take up a lot of space.
Yeah, I remember actually my brother got married like 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago. And it was a big, typical, like, Lebanese wedding and lots of drumming and lots of, and two of my daughters were like so into, like, they took the drum sticks and they were like into it. And then my other daughter just took her drawing stuff and went to a corner and did her drawing and had no interest in all this noise. And, it's like, it's good that she even knew to do that, right? Like, you don't have to be here in the noise. You have permission to go and go to over there and draw, which you love to do. And you don't have to, like, just almost giving kids permission to do what feels right for them, I think is so important.
Yes. What I thought even as we become adults, right, for that highly sensitive person, giving yourself permission to, let's say, be overwhelmed. Right? If you are a highly sensitive parent and it's like, this is a lot, putting in some noise canceling little headphones or something, or even if you can't, like, okay, we're all going out, let's go out, and sort of allowing nature to sort of contain everybody's everything. Yeah, I think providing some of that.
Yeah, sometimes I narrate even as I feel my body just starting to, like, all the, I'll say, Mama's body's getting really stressed right now. I just need to go get a glass of water or whatever, like,
yes,
Mama needs a break right now, and I'll be back.
Yeah.
You guys sit tight,
Yeah. And that's a great modeling right there. That's, like, oh, okay, I can do this too. Yeah. I can take a minute too.
Wait a minute, I know. But it's true. I need a minute and sometimes several minutes, Like,
yes.
Go to the room, close the door, take 5 minutes to just be settled back into my body. Right? Yeah. What are some common wounds that highly sensitive kids carry into adulthood?
The first one that sort of comes to mind is this: I'm too much. Right, some aspect. Well, oftentimes it isn't even viewed as an aspect. It's just I as a whole.
Oof.
Right, I'm too much. Which then in adulthood often looks like, sort of these self-abandoning behaviors. I'm overstimulated, or something doesn't feel right, but I'm just going to do it because to be in a relationship means that I have to bypass the things that I
want, or I
want,
feel, or I
So I think that's a big one. I think that's a very,
in order to be accepted or in order to be in a relationship, I have to abandon myself.
I have to abandon myself right, because who I am it's
not accepted.
Right, it's not accepted. It's too much. I'm too needy. Right, oftentimes like some version, some variation of that. The other one, which kind of echoes that one as well, is that there's just something wrong with me. There's just something wrong with me, and if I could find this thing, right, like if it's my anxiety, if I can find this thing, and then I know, and I gain all of this knowledge to how to conquer it, if you will, then I will be well.
Which is, you're never gonna conquer that anxiety. So how do you start healing those wounds that you carry into adulthood?
Well, the sort of the first thing that came to my mind is we heal in relationship, to others, right, to self, to nature, other forms. But it's often sort of working out these, like, what if I, let's say, what if I am too much? Right? What is that? Sometimes challenging it, right? But sometimes also recognizing, maybe it feels like too much to some people, right? But what does that mean then for me to say, I need this right now, right? Or I want this right now, or I can't do this right now? And can I tolerate it? Right? Can I tolerate not or being sort of out of sync with, let's say, in a relationship because I'm not okay with this certain thing, or I'm not okay with this, or I need more of this.
And
And
it's
of
often
course,
hard to ask for what you need, right?
yeah. Especially if sort of we've had this belief that has stayed with us for a very long time that we're too much, right? Or that there's something wrong with me. So it's like we have to kind of confront those things. And then, as we sort of confront these things and find acceptance, oftentimes for who we are. Yeah, maybe maybe I am, maybe a little too much sometimes, right? And that's also can be beautiful. Maybe my having this empathy and being very aware of certain things, or even the overstimulation, right? That can also be viewed as a gift, right? Sort of what we talked about, the superpower. Then beginning to shift that acceptance of who we are, right, at our core of, yes, the highly sensitive aspect of ourselves, and then other aspects, and really working to, I think, integrate those, because oftentimes it can be very split off with highly sensitive people, or just in general. I can't be this. I have to be this, and oftentimes healing is like, how do we bring all of these aspects of ourselves, right,
back into wholeness.
Back into wholeness.
I want to dig into wholeness, but one thing as you were talking, I was thinking about highly sensitive kids or not. There's a lot of kids that were told, or a lot of adults when they were kids were told, kids are to be seen, not heard. And I often think like what that does to you as an adult when you grew up in childhood being told that you're seen but never heard, right? Like that your voice doesn't matter, or there's no place for your voice here. And how does that show up as a wound, when you become an adult? I'm curious just to hear your opinion about that, how that would shape someone.
I'd say that would probably lead to more of those sort of really self-abandonment like behaviors. Something that came to my mind that I haven't shared before is highly sensitive people can be very prone to addictions. Oftentimes, addictions is a way to cope. And addictive life behaviors, choose your choice of addiction. So I imagine, growing up hearing like, essentially, you don't matter. You don't matter.
Yeah.
Right?
Because they're not even saying seen. I mean, nowadays we use seen as in like really seen, seen for who you are. But back then they were just literally like they see you, but they don't see you,
Yeah.
That you're just sitting there, but you're being polite and quiet and well-behaved and,
Yeah, well, that's devastating, right? It makes me sad just even hearing that, right? Picturing that. And that's, thankfully that's somewhat shifting now and changing, but as we talked about, like this is so central, if you will, to the highly sensitive person. And it's almost like the environment has to be just right for them to say, I'm here sometimes, where like another child might just be quite loud at times and be like, no, I'm going to get it. Right? But if the highly sensitive child can see you're upset, you're troubled. Okay, I'll wait. I won't say anything. What do you need, Mom? Or Dad or whoever. Let me kind of step into this role and take care of you. So while one child may try to really make their needs known, I will be seen, right? I'm going to be loud or whatever.
I'm going to tell you what I want.
Yeah, you're really going to notice me. For that highly sensitive child, they can at times, but again, that environment, that nurture, that care can really affect them. And so if we're struggling, and again, but we're always going back to the good enough. We're not always going to be well. That's okay. And sometimes we just need space, and that's okay. But, to come back to that, children are to not, basically, like, we're not going to see you.
Yeah. Seen, not heard.
Seen, not heard. Thank you. That phrase is leaving me. But seen, not heard, then it sort of begins, right, that those self-abandoning like behaviors. And then how do we cope with that? Well, I got to find something, right, to cope with this distress that we're feeling inside. And it could lead to what I mentioned, a possible, not all the time, right? Nobody panic.
Yeah.
Who's listening to this, but addictive-like behaviors,
Yeah, so interesting. How do we heal? So whether it's the self-abandonment or whether it's the, adults around you not knowing that you're highly sensitive and maybe being either hypercritical or, making you tough it up and keep going, with your siblings, pretending like there's nothing different, you don't have any different traits. How do we start to heal that? How do we, where does one begin to do that work?
Yeah. As I mentioned before, right, finding, like, where do I feel safe? Almost like, where can I begin to experiment with this, right? So if there's this, let's say, knowledge of, okay, maybe this, right, what if I am a highly sensitive person? What if I have these needs? For as long as I've been alive, I've done these self-abandoning behaviors. This doesn't matter. I can let it go. It doesn't matter. I'll just sort of stay quiet. What does it look like, right? To begin to, if you will, experiment with that. Sometimes that's like going to therapy, right? Connecting to a therapist. Sometimes that's in other relationships where you feel safe. And so if you and your mother-in-law have a strained relationship, that's not the place to begin to experiment with these behaviors or this being seen. But in what other context do you feel this relational safety where you feel like, the other person actually will probably be able to tolerate, my
visibility,
visibility, right? All of these things. And so in the context of, like, my work as a therapist, sometimes it can often feel like a struggle for my highly sensitive people to say these things that they think or these feelings, and it can be like, oh, I can't say it, right? And so we're sort of working to, like, let's take that risk, say it, right? Say it even towards me, right? If you have a particular feeling towards me in therapy and you're angry with me, like, let's see if we can both tolerate it here together. And naturally afterwards I say naturally, it could feel terrible. It could feel devastating as being seen sometimes. But oftentimes there's, like, actually it feels good to be seen, to be known.
It's so fascinating to me that we, obviously our generation's trying to do it as, trying to do it better, I guess, than maybe we had it. But this idea of we suppress, who kids are, because obviously, them being docile, quiet, calm, all that stuff maybe makes our life better in some way because we don't have to deal with all the screaming, the shouting, the dancing, all the things that kids are, right, when they're young. But the suppressing of who they are, happens in childhood, and then you kind of get into adulthood and you spend your entire adult life trying to, like, figure out who you are and go back to being whole and being authentic and kind of peeling the onion, right? And trying to get back to your essence.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, if we just try to do it differently from the beginning and not suppress so much, not, like, unallowed, kids to be who they are, maybe we wouldn't have to do all that work on the back end, right?
On one lens, we could look at it and be like, this is so nice. What a nice, lovely, empathic child I have. On the other end, they could be self-abandoning, right? And this isn't, I never want to create panic for anybody, but sometimes because of their high empathy and all of that, the highly sensitive child can move into some of those behaviors. And so it's helpful for us as adults to know, when could this be happening and how do I step in to help them? My highly sensitive child would pick up on the dysregulation of a younger sibling. And this is even as they start to get older. And they would step in to try to soothe, right? How do I help you? How do I help you? How do I help you? Meanwhile,
they've abandoned
they're like highly dysregulated. But because of that empathy, right, they're sort of stepping in and like, I need to help you to feel better before I can feel better. Or in order for me to feel better, I need to help you. And I've seen that dynamic also play out in the context of the highly sensitive child and a parent. You're distressed as my parent or as my grown-up, whoever. This is very uncomfortable for me, but I need to step in and help you so that I can feel better.
That reminds me a little bit of like people pleasing, how that starts, right?
Yeah.
Like if I can just please you and calm you down, then I'll be better.
Yeah. And in the context, let's say there of siblings, right? I could look at my that's so sweet. Like what a sweet, generous thing to do. I mean, because it is, right? Like they're stepping in, distressed sibling or something, like that's so sweet. Sometimes they're going to fall into that role as sometimes that like we help people out, and it's good to show our children like, oh, let's be helpful and things of that sort. But one of the things that I had to be very mindful of, and that I like to encourage adults to be very mindful of, is that child may be stepping on for this reason. So one of the things that I would often tell my highly sensitive child, and sometimes to this day, they're a lot more grounded and like, this isn't my place to step in anymore. But, this is really uncomfortable for your sibling. It's probably making you very uncomfortable. It's going to be my job. It's my job to help them, right? How can we help you right now? Like, they're in distress. Maybe they need more of my attention. And I know you're dysregulated too. But
maybe you
what
need
are the
to
things
go
like
to...
maybe art, right? The drawing, that's sort of a very soothing thing for them. So feel free. You go. I'm going to help them, right? I'm helping them. It's my job to step in.
I try to say that sometimes, like it's mama's job. It's mama's job. But so fascinating. It's like the people pleasing sometimes starts so young. Wanting to take care of somebody else's needs. And we applaud that, right? Like we applaud taking care of other people's needs. And societally it's like, oh, it seems so giving, but a lot of times it's at the expense of abandoning self, which,
Yeah. It's been very fascinating to somewhat see that just within this population, that it's very difficult for them in adulthood later. Not impossible, right? But sort of the things that they're working out to begin to separate from that. Oh, I can be regulated. I can, even when you're in distress, right? Even when you're angry towards me or whatnot. But because of their high empathy, they sort of might fall into those roles at an earlier age, and then we kind of applaud it. Right? Like, they're so sweet, they're so caring.
So how do you start to do that work to kind of heal that? Like, I know you said you're kid is now somewhat grounded, or your daughter, I think, somewhat grounded. How did you get there? How did you start to like pull away from, no, you don't have to take care of your younger sibling that's in distress right now? How do you start doing that work?
Yeah. In adulthood, you mean?
Or just, I mean, she's still a child, so even like that, she's more grounded now.
Kind of, yeah. I think hopefully in childhood is helping them understand their own boundaries, right? So if you're in distress, what is it that you need, right? Now, this is sort of for us as adults to think about, like, we're not going to be asking our 6 or 7 or even really probably our 10-year-old, like,
boundaries.
I mean, maybe by 10, you can start to ask them, like, what feels good for you? Like, what do you need right now? But when they're younger, we kind of step into that. But, helping them to kind of establish, right, some of those boundaries. And I think oftentimes in a family system, communicating sort of to the kids, like, I'm the one to handle, right, sort of the siblings or the dysregulation, right? I can handle it.
Yeah, it's my job.
It's my job. Yeah.
That's why I love when I remember learning this early on, where it's like, you know, instead of stop hitting your sister, right? It's like, I will not allow you to hit your sister. It's my job. It's not your job to be the adult to stop hitting, right?
Yeah.
It's my job to tell you where the boundary is. I will not allow you to hit your sister. And if you keep hitting your sister, I'm going to come and take you out of this situation, you know, and we're going to go over here and calm down, you know. Yeah. It's like, I think there's this like outsourcing of the adult's responsibility onto the child, and how like it just ends up messing up the kids because they're 6 or whatever.
Also, how exhausting for the parent when right, there's this outsourcing. Stop hitting your sibling. Stop hitting your sibling. Stop. Like, you get exhausted from that. Like, what if you, right, an alternative, what if you step in right away and then you kind of conserve some of your energy?
Exactly. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm not going to put the responsibility on you to suddenly know how. I mean, you're just triggered and you're just hitting your sibling, you know? Like, I'm going to be the adult and I'm going to take that power, you know, and I'm not just going to assume that you will listen half the time they're not listening. I mean, at that state, they're just hitting away.
Yeah. So to come back to that example, though, in the car, because one of the things that we also want to note, so when the highly sensitive child is empathizing, because that's part of who they are, and they're stepping into that role of deep empathy, and oftentimes, right, like, how do I take care of you now? How do I do this? So as parents, we can help them, establish those boundaries. I'm going to take care of them, and I'm going to help them regulate. Let's help you regulate in some other ways. So it can be so helpful for that highly sensitive child to then for the adult in their life to come and help them make sense of, right? What happened in the car? What was happening with brother? Let's talk about that, right? What were you sort of feeling in that? And I say that, again, being mindful that sometimes kids don't have the language. Sometimes they don't want to have the language for it. They're like, everything was fine. I'm gonna go play. But giving them that chance to be seen in their experience of what happened in the car. This was very chaotic for you. Maybe it was really difficult to see your brother struggling. And giving them some options, even then post, let's say, of what they can do in the future. How can they use their empathy while, if you will, in our language, not self-abandoning, right? You were feeling a lot of feelings at that time. Maybe for you, it could be helpful for you to put on your headphones, right? To try to calm down, and then, hand a little toy to your brother or something to show that you care, that you're there for them. But helping them, right, both not to self-abandon and also still to to connect, right? To access that empathy, which is so central to who they are.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, it's like yes and, right? Like holding both, right?
Yeah.
It's not either or. It's like, yes, the empathy is beautiful, and how do we not self-abandon? I want to go back to superpower. What happens when we start to really claim sensitivity as a gift?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
it seems like maybe we attune to things in a different, it does feel like superpowers, right? So what do you see? How do you see when obviously adults or maybe even kids start to really see sensitivity as a superpower? What do you see? How does that manifest?
Yeah. Yeah. The first thing that comes to mind is like, so you have a highly sensitive person, right, who's not always, if you will, in their feelings, but they have a good range of access to that, and they're no longer sort of feeling like, oh, this is too much, right? And if you will, it can come at a cost because it's often painful. We build a lot of beautiful defense mechanisms throughout our life. And so it can be painful, right? It can feel like death, right? We're entering death. And
Well, it is.
to do this work, right? You kind of are saying, okay, I'll go there.
I'm ready to release this person, right? And try to figure out who this person underneath all these things really is.
Yeah. And so that can be really scary, really frightening, because again, sometimes the defense mechanisms and that we build are functional. They're adaptive, and so
And not only
they've
that, but I
worked
think
for me.
sometimes they not only work for us, but sometimes we thrive with them.
Yeah.
Because it's right. Like I've seen me included, right?
Yes.
Like there's these patterns or ways of being that come from like early trauma, right? That become like sometimes they make you highly functional.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you're. I actually feel when you start kind of doing the work, it feels a little like things are breaking, shaking, loosening, where before it's like it's almost easier to stay planted in that old identity, right?
Yeah.
I'm a hyper-functioning traumatized person. This works really great,
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of magic on the other side, right? That it takes a bit of work to get there.
Yeah. Yes. And so that I think holding that kind of in mind and knowing, so in therapy, sometimes I'll have clients who come in sort of like, this is going to be fantastic. Like, this is going to be, you're going to tell me what to do. I'm going to do it. And then my life's going to be great.
You're like, I'm not going to tell you anything. Yes, your life is not going to be great for a while.
Yeah. And so, we're often, we're often sort of descending, right, in therapy and sort of in this healing, when we're healing, descending into, the pits of hell.
The abyss. Yeah, into the abyss.
But I like to view things kind
We're
of
not encouraging
cyclically.
anybody to go on a healing journey.
No. Yeah. Well, so the cyclical part, right, is death, life. And so, yes, we're descending into the abyss.
There's going to be a rebirth.
And there's a rebirth, right? Oftentimes, like when people come to therapy, they're like, this just isn't working anymore, right, in my life. Like, I'm unhappy, or like I continue to do this thing, or other people continue to do these things to me, and I don't want to do it anymore. Right, and so there goes. We begin sort of the descent, with often, right, life after, right, which can be a lot of freedom. It can provide us with freedom. So
Yeah, you probably notice it in your parenting. I know all the work that I've done in my parenting, how it shows up, Probably would have been a very different type of mother had I had kids at a different time.
Yeah.
You know, like how you show up and how you hold space, and how I probably would have just been triggered all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And, so in my own personal journey, there was some of that even before, like in my 20s. I'm in my 30s now, and there was more, right? Other layers of things. And so it's like, oh, I thought I did everything already, right? Or I thought I did the big stuff, right? But there's more. Right?
It's wild how much our subconscious holds, right? Like in all the things that we repress. I think that's always fascinating to me. Like when things come up and I'm like, this was a non-issue. Like, I don't know where this is coming from right now, but this wasn't an issue until right now.
Yes. Yes.
Like, why did this have to come up right now? Like, I've been totally fine my whole life without it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why did this memory or this thing kind of surface now?
Yeah. 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 It's like, okay, well, I guess more things to integrate.
Weed through,
integrate. Weed through some things, right? And then,
Yeah. Huh. So maybe share one story from your childhood that you feel, it could have been a hard memory or a hard experience, but you're actually grateful for.
Yeah. I'm going to go young.
Yeah.
So something that I was born in Mexico, and
where in Mexico?
Around Toluca. It's a little further south from Toluca, but I was born in a very, very small town. So I usually say Toluca because it's the bigger city. But I think around 6 to 1 years of age, my parents
6 months.
6 months to
Wow,
1.
you remember that far back?
No, I don't remember. But this
I'm
sort of
wow,
shaped.
I'm impressed.
Yeah, no. This sort of shaped, if you will, kind of like my identity as a child as well. My parents moved with my 2 sisters to the United States, and I stayed with my grandmother. And I stayed there until I was about 4 years old.
Oh, wow.
And I'm told, my
And
grandmother...
they kept you there just because it was too hard to bring you as a baby?
It was too hard. My parents were working full time, and, my siblings had places where they were going to go. We didn't know, or they weren't certain about me. And so when I moved to the States with them, and just, I don't have a lot of memories, but sort of
around 4 or 5.
Around 4 or 5, yeah. But the sort of echoing thing was that, why was I left there? Why was I left there? Sort of
something that you were asking?
Sort of a thing that I was asking, and within my siblings, it was echoed by them and their own feelings and frustrations that I was left there because I wasn't wanted. So this became my narrative as a kid, a highly sensitive kid, but it became sort of my narrative, right? That I wasn't wanted. And that, eventually worked through all of that. But I often viewed that as sort of within this, abandonment lens of why would they, and a lot of just hurtful feelings. I think I can hold that a little bit more as almost a necessary thing, perhaps, as now knowing my parents and knowing their own struggles and knowing the struggles really of my mom at that time and what she was likely going through. She was a very young mother. I think I kind of view it almost as a gift to have been raised at that time by my grandmother, who, from all of the stories that I hear from aunts and cousins and things of that sort, she was a very nurturing, very caring woman. And, No, it's, I think, probably helped me a lot. Being who I am, sort of identifying as a highly sensitive person, to have her and, you know, the collective community there, and where she was with aunts and, you know, cousins and things who all sort of poured into me at that time. And I think helping to, if you will, kind of shift that for me. And yes, there was pain and hurt through all of that. And, you know, in my younger years of
but
of
maybe
that,
your
but
grandmother
also-
gave you what your mother couldn't.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always so interesting how some things that create a lot of pain or, you know, wounds or trauma, we can shift the lens on how we see them, you know? And sometimes I feel, at least I'm talking personally, I feel I wouldn't be who I am without all the stuff I went through, you know? I'd be a different person. So, you know, in that respect, like sometimes they are gifts, you know, whatever it is that we go through.
Yeah.
At least if we can see them that way and learn the lessons that they're meant to teach us, you know?
Yeah.
It's beautiful to talk to you about this topic as parents and as parents of highly sensitive kids and as highly sensitive humans, empath. I mean, I'm a deep empath too. It's beautiful to talk about this topic and see how we can support people in our lives that need this.
Well, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this conversation, please like, subscribe, and share with a friend. You can connect with Into Healing on TikTok and Instagram for more inspirational and behind-the-scenes content, and visit our website, intohealing.com, for transcripts and other goodies. Thank you for joining us.